Hey guys, what's going on? Another game from the 2024 Chess Olympiad. This is from the match between Latvia and Tunisia. With the white pieces, you had candidate master Mohammed Ben Ammar, who was rated 2143, and with the black pieces, Latvian grandmaster Artur's Nixon's rated 2571. This game started out d4 f5 Dutch defense, obscure opening nowadays, the top levels, and even more obscure e4. And this is my reason for choosing this game, to break the monotony of the Roy Lopez and Queen's Gambits, etc., etc. So knight c3. Hit thumbs up if you know what I'm talking about. If you're tired of seeing the same openings all the time too. And subscribe also. So knight c3 was played. Knight f6. This is known as the Staunton Gambit. Again, dates back to the Romantic era of chess, where gambits were always accepted, and because of that mentality, you saw a lot of miniature chess games, players with the black pieces getting blasted off the board, just giving up too much time in development to the opponent in order to prove that they were a manly man and willing to take gambits at all costs. So f3, of course, is meant in 2024 most of the time by moves like d5, which say, hey, I'm just going to keep developing. You can have the pawn back, and we'll play an equal chess game, right? Back in the 1800s, people would have gladly played e takes f3. And of course, it's possible. Can it be played? Yes, but if there's a easier way to equality, why not do it without helping your opponent develop, giving them an open file, semi-open file, right, and just giving him the themes, the attacking themes that he wants. So d5 is what's normally played. F takes e3. Bishop g5 is also common. I think bishop g5 is more popular actually. But f takes e4 was played. D takes e4, and now bishop g5. It's opening the scene very rarely. I don't remember the last time I've seen at grandmaster level. There are a couple of famous games with it, but again, black really has nothing to worry about. This is one of the actually calmer anti-Dutch systems. And just speaking of the Dutch, with f5, basically all of the anti-Dutch systems revolve around a simple idea that black has weakened his king side in the opening with the move f5, and these moves try to exploit that. The Dutch is a cousin to the King's Indian defense. If you think about the King's Indian defense will work to play e5 first in the opening, and then follow up later on with f5 and the subsequent king side attack. The Dutch, conversely, will play f5 first and then work to play the move e5 at some point. So we can see that the good point of e5, of the early f5, is that e4 is under control. And what does this do? This prevents white from building that big center that white often builds in the King's Indian. If you look at King's Indian openings, right, the classical defenses, the same-ish variation, bishop g5 variation, white gets that big three-pawn center, right? c4, d4, e4. Even in the f4 variations, white gets the huge center, which he has to often contend with. So the Dutch seeks to avoid that by playing f5 early and gaining control over e4 and keeping black from getting the huge center in the opening. However, the payment for that is the weakened queen side, because f5, let's be honest, does nothing to contribute to development and gives a big weakness to black in the opening. And this is why that opening has always been looked upon sideways, although there have been grandmasters in the past, Kramnik, Nakamura, Botvinnik himself that have played it, but typically it's recognized that, hey, this is one of the issues. So all of those anti-Dutch defenses, Staunton Gambit, the early bishop g5s, the queen d3s, g4s of the world, all designed to exploit this. So if you're willing to undertake those challenges in your preparation to study, and be willing to lose some games under 30 moves, by all means pick up the Dutch defense, because there are a lot of anti-Dutch systems, but they're all basically revolving around that. The Staunton Gambit is just one of them, and one of the tamer ones. So the game continued knight ge2, e6. And notice too, with the modern style of play, White is not able to gain access easily to knight f3. He would have loved for Black to capture on f3 earlier, so that he can bring his knight to that square and have this free development, castle, bishop c4, castle, and have the open e file, the semi-open, the open f file, and the semi-open e file at his disposal. But with the move d5, it makes it difficult, and now this pawn is like a thorn in the white position, and now White is forced to lose time playing a move like ge2, because after all, didn't you want to gain time by playing the gambit in the first place? But now you're giving the time back, because although you're gonna play knight g3 attacking the bishop on f5, you're still not gaining your time back, because that bishop is not gonna move. Now, if the bishop moved back to g6 or something, or went back to d7, then you can say, okay, I gained my time back, right? I gained the tempo attacking, but look what happens. e6. Black opens lines for his dark square bishop to come out. And now after g3, Black just ignores that and keeps it moving. Bishop e7. So White has given back the time that he's gained Gambit in the pawn, and Black is fully caught up in development, and it's still up a pawn to boot. And this is how you deal with gambits. Bishop b5 check, c6, and what this move does is it just keeps Black from playing the move knight c6 after, say, like bishop c4, knight c6 for example, and you have this pressure on this pawn here, right? It's not bad, but it's just a different idea. So bishop here kind of asks Black the question, hey, do you want double pawns, and here? Black is like, no, I'd rather just push the bishop back to c4. Now Black has to be careful here, of course, because of this the power of this bishop on this diagonal right here. If Black does castles, that would be a big mistake, and he will be lost immediately after knight takes f4 because of the pin. So instead, Black plays knight bd7, castles, same idea. Black cannot castle at this point. So now here's the difference. Remember, White played knight g3 attacking the bishop on f5. The bishop didn't have to move on f5 because the move e6 was available. So Black didn't lose any time. So now here, Black develops his knight on b8 to d7. Now he's going to actually gain time against his bishop. So now he plays b6. See, the bishop had to move again. So Black gained a tempo and developed his knight to a better square than it was on d7. Now queen d7. Why queen d7? Because Black is planning on castling queen side. All right, he can't castle king side because of the tactics. So now White says, you know what? I want to get my pawn back. So he plays bishop takes f6. He wants to get rid of that e pawn. That's really what it is. It's not that he's going to gain his pawn back, but he wants to get rid of the e pawn, which is just a wedge in the position, right? Kind of a la the fork-bear counter gambit. So bishop takes f6. Now, again, even though white's going to gain the e pawn back, the d pawn is now attacked twice by the queen and bishop. Knight c takes e4. Check. Okay, black is happy to go in the end game, right? The bishop here. And up a pawn. What more could black want, right? Go in the end game, safe, and up a pawn. Captures that pawn. And now here is kind of where white starts to lose the thread in the position. The simple move here for black is just rook b1. And just attacking the bishop, right? It's the obvious move. And even though black is still up material, the piece activity is going to save the day here for white. Right? After bishop a3, knight g5, say king d7, for example. Rook f3 with the attack, discovered attack against his bishop on a3, right? With moves like bishop e6 check, for example. And you can see the piece activity of white. Knight takes f5, e takes, knight e6, king b8, and you can see how it's kind of hard to for black still to develop and get all his pieces in the game. All right, and this will give black compensation here, even though he would be down a pawn still after rook takes f5. So this is why this was the best, is to play this move, rook a b1. However, what white's idea was to play knight d6 first, and he basically wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He wanted to be like, hey, I'm gonna keep the bishop, you know, instead of attacking the bishop on b1 and sending them to a3 diagonal. He said, you know what I'll do is I'll make an in-between move. I'll play knight d6 check, and what I'll do is I'll get my knight to a good square. I'll be ready to capture on f5. I'll be attacking b6, and I'll prevent the king from castling. That sounds great on paper, but as we know in chess, tactics are king. And let's see what happened. Knight d6, right? Double question mark, right? So dramatic. King d7. So now rook d8. I'm sorry, d1. And now it looks great because you're threatening to snatch that bishop on f5 for free. King safely to the side there. King c7. And now basically black has the benefits of castling without having castled. And remember the position I showed you before at the end where, I'll go back to it. Which position was it? It's a different position. Sorry about that. This one. The position I showed you where it was hard for black to develop. See how his rooks aren't coordinated? And white is still active. However, in contrast, we go back to our position. Now, we can see the rooks are connected here. The king is safely tucked away. Okay? So, although the intentions were good, it just didn't work out how white thought it would. So, after the king moved to c7, knight g takes f5, and now black is still up a pawn. And that's the main difference I see from this position and the last position, is that the rooks are connected, which make all the difference, because now this is possible. Again, I'll contrast one more time. This position and what actually happened in the game. See, now the rooks are connected and they can trade off. This is bad for white because he's down the pawns. Bunch of trades, and at this point I believe white was just trying to go to some kind of opposite color bishop ending and hoping that he can draw at this point. He has back rank issues, so he has to be careful with his king on h1. Notice also, speaking of kings, black's king is ready to enter the fray at a moment's notice because of his good positioning. g4, this is what white uses to solve his back rank problem. g4, and also his idea is to take space by playing bishop f5. And so now, of course, black is just going to try to create a pass pawn, right? He has a 3-2 majority on the queen side. And just pushing those pawns. And now he starts creating problems in the position. Bishop defends the pawn on a2. Now he's attacking the c2 pawn. And this forces the rook to go passive. Notice how white's rook has to go from the third rank back to the second rank. And this allows black's king to be able to enter the position. c4. So this is basically like a desperate move. You know, as the king was about to, go to a3 and then b2. It's like a desperate move. So, and at this point, the game is over for all intents and purposes. As the pawns just march forward. Even here, it's understandable why black avoided the exchange of rooks. He didn't want any funny stuff to happen as far as the opposite color bishops are concerned, because they're notorious for drawing. But even if he exchanged, white would have to give up his bishop. So but nevertheless, after a few more moves, white was forced to resign. And that's all she wrote. After rook to say e1, for example, again, the bishop's going to have to sacrifice itself on c2 to stop the pawn. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. That was just a quick video, quick look at the Latvia-Tunisia game between a grandmaster with the black pieces and just a mere mortal candidate master with the white pieces. But again, I like the unusual opening choice. It's refreshing to see, just something different from the same openings that we see at the very, very top levels, and also to see some players that we never really talk about also. So please hit the thumbs up button. Check the links below. There's videos always related to the opening. We talked about Staunton Gambit, Dutch defense, so there'll be some videos, books down there. Yeah, check them out. If you get one of those, you'll be supporting the channel. You can also donate in the links below. And also get in the comment box. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys on the next video.